Thank you for staying with us. For the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, it is no retreat, no surrender in his quest for the presidency. Atiku, who addressed newsmen in Abuja over President Bola Tinubu's academic records in the United States, said his legal team are ready to submit new evidence found about the records to the Supreme Court. So let's hear from former Vice President Atiku Abubakar.
It is very, very clear that from decided authorities, the Supreme Court has held that they can accept a party to adduce fresh evidence as long as certain conditions are met.
Please, our dearest colleagues, we expect that we should maintain decorum.
All right, I think we still take the feed from former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. And today is 5th of October, and according to the timeline, I think the legal team of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar will still have the opportunity to submit whatever they want to submit in the presence of the Supreme Court, and that case will continue. And ultimately, in the next 60 days or so, the Supreme Court will actually rule on every of the prayer brought before it by the plaintiffs.
Well, Atiku said the quest is not for or about Atiku Abubakar. It is a quest for enthronement of truth, morality, and accountability in our public affairs. It should not take months or indeed decades for the institutions concerned to be able to do their work in establishing the credibility of any certificate presented by candidates for public office. The Constitution prescribes the requirements for those who seek the highest elected positions in the land. Atiku also knows that electoral matters are quite different from civil matters. They keep saying that they can bring fresh evidence. Time is a gentleman. Let us see whether in the fullness of time they will be able to bring in fresh evidence. And where you say that somebody parades a forged document, you must bring the issuer of the real document. In this case, maybe the principal of a school or the registrar of a school to testify that indeed that document in that person's
Going by the judgment of
that of Osun, the Osun
and the Court of Appeal,
governorship election, the Court of Appeal judgment, which was validated by the Supreme Court. Adeleke was accused of parading a fake or forged secondary school certificate. But the judges ruled that they should have brought the principal of his school to authenticate the veracity otherwise of that forged or supposedly forged document. Now, can the Supreme Court, as the final court, entertain a witness coming to defend or undefend a particular document before it? All of that will have been done at the tribunal level, at the lower courts. The Supreme Court does not receive evidence and then have someone defend or refuse to defend the evidence, because you cannot prove that that document is fake unless the issuer comes to court to say this is. You can see what the Americans did. They got the registrar to come to court for the deposition in respect of those documents, which he did. And he said, in respect of, we are the ones, you know, a lot of us Nigerians are consumed by Nigerian, in the way Nigerians do things. Therefore, we believe that that's the way it is all over the world. In America, they really don't place so much accent on the diplomas or the certificates. It is your transcript that the Americans place accent on. And the registrar also said, when it comes to replacement certificates, that vendors handle that. So vendors who print, they can actually print a certificate. I've never seen where a person will forge what originally belongs to him. The most important thing is that he had that certificate. The school has said that he graduated, and upon graduating, he got a certificate. So the issue that you are proving now is that, oh, he forged a certificate that he has. And they are saying it's only certificate that people fail to come and pick up that we have. You get the point. Somebody, if you picked your certificate at the school, then the school does not have any record, or they don't keep copies of your certificates. They've said it clearly. But people who have made up their minds that, oh, we have lost an election, how do we get around this? We must stop this man. And probably he will seek a second term. We must begin to destroy him from this point. They are not going to listen to all of this. Remember that when this thing first came out, there was some silence. But at that time, they sat down, they were thinking, what do we do? What do we do? I'm confident that the Supreme Court will do justice in consonance with our law. As a final court, yes, in civil matters, on very rare occasions, if the Supreme Court made a mistake in the course of a judgment, maybe a clerical error, it can revisit the judgment that it gave. And then, if it realizes that it made a mistake, it can accept fresh evidence because it made a mistake. Not in matters like this, because in the case of electoral matters, you have deadline. You must meet the deadline. If you fail to meet the deadline, well, that is your problem.
Okay, let's quickly go back to the press conference held earlier today by the candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the last presidential election, Atiku Abubakar.
It requires us once more to rededicate ourselves to both the country and our constitution. Now we must entrust these facts to us all as citizens and as leaders of the institutions charged with interpreting our constitution. I should thank the lawyers, both in Nigeria and in the United States, who have assisted us in bringing clarity and definitive answers to these issues that appear to have defied our institutions for nearly a quarter of a century. I also want to extend my gratitude to the Nigerian citizens and friends of Nigeria, both within and beyond the shores of our country, for their patience as we have sought to find the facts and establish the truth. I wish to pay tribute to the late human rights activist, Chief Gani Fawehimi, senior advocate of Nigeria, who inspired us on this path of discovery. Now he can truly rest in peace in the assurance that what he started about 23 years ago has come to fruition. Gani's vindication today gives credence to the saying that no matter how fast a lie runs, the truth will someday overtake it. Former
Tikien, Atiku Abubakar this is the 4th outing, and he knows that, look, he must do everything, because if he doesn't get anything out of this, he might not have the opportunity to come back in 2027.
Well, let's wait till then.
This is the last. I want to agree by the age or anything.
Let's wait till then. But let us establish certain facts. The first and foremost is that...
Okay, just corrected me that this is the 5th outing, going from the SDP days.
Yes. Let's establish one fact. What Atiku is doing is exercising his fundamental and constitutional rights. Basic. There's nothing wrong with that. That is, let us establish that. 2 is the fact that this is not the first time we are seeing a presidential candidate challenging the outcome of a presidential election. In all the elections that President Buhari contested, he got to the Supreme Court. That is established.
No, but so, the uniqueness of this one is that Atiku has left Nigeria now on a voyage to the United States in search of further evidence.
Let me tell you, in law, we are taught, we practically have 2 Bibles in law. One is the Constitution. The second is what we call the Evidence Act. That is what I was taught in law. Okay? Most often than not, everything that we do in law is about evidence. And we have that documented in what is called the Evidence Act. So nobody goes beyond that. So that's why I say that there are 2 Bibles. One is the Constitution. The second is the evidence. So anything apart from that, if you cannot be able to bring the evidence before the judge cannot manufacture any evidence for you, even if he knows the truth. So what Atiku is doing is looking for evidence. So there's still nothing wrong in it. But the question you ask yourself, how relevant is whatever evidence he has now to the case in question? Do you understand? And I have heard so many people say, oh, you cannot bring an evidence that was not established in the initial. There have been instances where fresh evidence have been brought to the Supreme Court that were not. There are very few. Let me tell you one thing. There's one thing we need to say.
Electoral matters.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. No, that's what I said.
We have to be clear.
Yes. Except electoral. I'm talking of except electoral. Let me tell you, most of it are law. Even when you have been taught law, they say, after our lecturers used to say, there are exceptions to the rules. That is law for you. So there have been instances where evidence are brought forward, and new evidence and the rest of that. But in electoral matters, that may not be able to fly. But the fact remains that Atiku seems. I was just watching what you were saying.
So why is it optimistic?
Yeah. Well, you don't know.
He was even thanking Ganifa for starting this thing.
Let me tell you for a fact. You sitting down here cannot determine. We can't say what the Supreme Court can say tomorrow. You cannot. No lawyer. Even let me give you a classical example. Did anybody ever believe that Hope Uzodinma, who came forth in the election in Imo State, could be made the governor of Imo State? Never in the world. Let us say, okay, if you say that the first person...
So that means you believe that our Supreme Court is like a Charlie Boy show where virtually anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
There are aberrations. No, some things will happen. What they did, you know what they did with Hope Uzodinma? Yeah. They will never do it again.
No, but it happened.
Never.
That is no, you say it will
now.
No, because you say it will never happen again, but it happened. And let me tell you something. Law.
So because that happened does not mean that we should expect that in every situation the Supreme Court may not follow the law.
No. Let me tell you a fact. There is what is called morality and law. Most people mix that up. There is morality, there is law. Most people mix up morality as law and law as morality. They are 2 different things entirely. You will look at times people say, oh, public opinion doesn't matter. In a case, I tell you that at times public opinion matters. Because these judges are still human beings. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm just putting the fact remains, which is what I like what the Chief Justice, the new Chief Justice said, but we are going to get to that case, that the judges should limit themselves to the issue of law. And what I'm saying in essence is that I don't know
And
what
he
is
said
preaching.
they
What
should
are
not
going to preach?
follow public opinion.
Yeah.
He said the public opinion does not represent the law, and they should not follow public.
That is what I'm saying. I said
Because the noisy majority, the noisy minority can actually sway people to believe that that's the overriding opinion.
You know why I'm saying? You know why I'm talking about the issue that you cannot examine? Because there have been instances. If you look at even the governorship election tribunals, the judgment they've given, you'll be surprised that a particular tribunal will give a judgment based on certain principles, and you go to another, you look at another tribunal, and the same principle, and they've changed it. So most often than not, judges don't just look at things just because it's based on the evidence you bring before the judge that he will be able to deliver judgment. So back to Atiku, he said, I was laughing when he was talking about Gani power in me, that wherever he is, will be happy, and the rest of them. That is neither nor here. Let Atiku take his case to the Supreme Court. This is no longer public opinion. And today is the 5th, right? Today's 4th? Today is 5th. Because today is the last day which he can file those cases, which was why which is why the court in United States said that those records should be released as soon as possible, on or before the 3rd of October, so that he can be able to then. I think he has all the evidence he thinks he has now. Let him take it to the Supreme Court. And why we wait on Supreme Court to be able to devise judgments?
We know that electoral matters are not like civil matters. Judges stick to the time frame in electoral matters. If you are supposed to file your case within so time and you don't file it,
The statute bad.
The PDP lost the case in Kaduna based on what some people call technicalities. Because the law is strict about that. That is the... So those who are... If you ask people to mention how many times the Supreme Court allowed fresh evidence, let them tell us now how many times they can remember. Most people talking about it cannot even mention one. Because it's a reality. It's a reality for the Supreme Court to reverse itself. It's a reality for Supreme Court to accept fresh evidence. And even where it has happened, they were not electoral matters, because the law is very clear about electoral matters. The electoral matters are unique in themselves. So he cannot present fresh evidence before the Supreme Court in electoral matters. And in this matter, the matter of forgery, as I said earlier, to establish forgery, the issuer of the certificate must come before the court to say this is fake. How do you do that? Does the Supreme Court allow witnesses to come and stand before it and say, no, it's fake? Do they allow, is that the way the Supreme Court does it? I've been at Supreme Court before to cover events, to cover judgments. They don't do that. It is the lawyers who will submit their final, what's it called, pleadings before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court will then determine whether at the lower court they erred in law. That's what the Supreme Court is ready to entertain. It's not ready to entertain arguments and fresh evidence. No. People should stop misleading Nigerians. That is the point.
All right. Okay, we have to leave it there. Whatever Atiku Abubakar is going to do at the Supreme Court, the next 60 days or so, thereabouts, or before that time, about that time, the Supreme Court will actually shed more light on this.